Welcome to Come and See, your podcast for finding truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. With host and founder Richard Case and co-host and retreat leader Kathy Ricconi. Join us every weekday at this time to discuss news, spend time in the Word, and receive answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. And now your host, Richard Case.
Well, good morning, Kathy. This
Good
is,
morning.
I believe, Wednesday, the 24th now, where this is, we've been making some headway into our new series on the supernatural, living in the supernatural.
I am so excited about this series. I just feel like it's really going to be a blessing to so many people.
Yeah, as a normal way of living that is different than our what we consider to be normal. And because of what we've experienced, it wasn't that you do these three things and you have it, or that you basically just acknowledge that it really isn't real. It's that we had a heart as we were abiding, according to what God led us to, was, do you have a heart to learn this? Why? Well, because that's life. It's supposed to be life, and it's real life, normal life, all the time life. And we'll get into that, because even now, as we're introducing this, the concept, the thought is, well, the supernatural is, curing somebody of cancer, and that's it. And what we're going to learn is, no, it's personal, and it's all the time that is unique to us, that we know something happened supernaturally.
Day in and day out.
Day in and day out, that even as we tell it to others, they could interpret it as, well, that was lucky, or, well, that was just circumstantial, and that really wasn't supernatural. But we know, it was, because why? Well, we saw God at work.
Right.
And part of the beauty of this is that it's not just, grand big things. It is grand big things, but it's just life that we get to see God at work in our personal life. And it keeps reminding just us. Did you see what I did there? Did you see what I did there? And you know it. And you rejoice. And you get excited about it. And you can bear witness to it, because you know that it wasn't you, it was Him. And there's a joy to that. Now, one thing I'd like to say about this, and then I'm going to ask you maybe to reflect on, why do you see so much skepticism? But the real joy behind it is, well, first of all, God says, I can do supernatural works to resolve the issues of your life, which are going to be all the time and many, and sometimes really tough.
Right.
And it's going to require me, because of who I am and the power that I have, which is superior to the world, I can resolve them all. I can bring resolution to them. Even the resolution has to be, we have to understand it's His will, not ours, in terms of, well, I'd like you to do it this way, and we've been developing messaging for our ministry to try to encourage people in the broader Christian church to be at least interested in abiding, and coming to know Him. But if you use the word abiding, they don't really understand that, or what the heck is that? Or nah, I don't need to know about that. Interesting enough, the ministry's grown from that. Where thousands and thousands of people are abiding, and the reason is really simple, because the people who learn it are bearing witness to the great, fantastic life that God resolves their issues. And it really, really, really happens, So, but as we're trying to expand that to people that don't know anything about us, how do we do that? And one comment that I have made, it's true, but at the same time, it's misunderstood. I say, particularly when people are coming to me for the first time, and they usually are coming because they have a problem.
Right.
And they're usually in pretty deep trouble, and somebody says, hey, you should talk to Rich. And the only reason is because I know something, and then I can introduce them to the God who's going to resolve it for them. And I say that, and they come with this problem, this adversity, and I say, well, God will I guarantee you, God will overcome the adversity. Now, it's true, but the word is a little bit misleading, because if I say overcome it, and I'm the recipient of that, well, that means it's going to go away and be taken care of, and it'll absolutely be exactly what I think it should be in terms of the solution.
Right.
And God says, no, that's not what I mean. I mean, I'll resolve it, and I will lead them to the covenant. I'll bring resolution, but it may be different than you think, or it may take longer than you think, or it may involve something different than you think. Like, for example, particularly for me, because I deal with a lot of business executives, if I say God will overcome the adversity, in their mind, it's, well, then my business is going to become successful. No, I'm not really saying that.
Right.
Why? Because first of all, I don't know how God's going to do it, and I can't pretend to know.
Right, and his ways are not always our ways.
I do mean that even if you fail in this business, which could be, that God has an answer for you. You know, and we've been talking on our Good Times Fridays, by the way, about that the commercial office space has dramatically changed since COVID.
Right.
And there's a tremendous empty space. So if I'm an office developer with really the prospects of, even if I build another beautiful building, probably will stay empty because all these other ones are empty already.
Right.
See, it doesn't mean that, well, I guarantee a success in your business, but rather I will resolve it for you, including even if your business fails, then I have something else for you to experience, because I'm going to bring to you, my follower, the covenant. And so even when we talk about this, you know, that's why God says, well, I'd like you to phrase it better, and that is, I'll resolve every issue for you, but you're going to have to let me do it in my timing, in my way. And like you said, my way isn't your way.
Right.
And my story is always bigger than you think, or longer than you think. And what's behind this is really where I need to get you to. So I may even in a sense need you to fail quicker so you can get to the stuff that I need to get to. So we say that the truth is that God will resolve every issue you got, and he has the supernatural power to do it and to bring you to wisdom and insight through it so that you see what he's up to. And I'm going to make all things work together for good. And of course, the problem we have is, God, I'm going to tell you what I want is good.
Right.
And I'll tell you when and how to do this. You know, and God says, I don't think that's going to work.
Not the way this works.
And it may take longer than you think. And you know, faith is trust in me. And so the question is, you know, we've talked about these questions. What's your perspective on why is the general, you know, Christian community so skeptical of even understanding the supernatural? What's your thought about that? What's your experience with that?
My experience, I've seen really two things specifically, and one is just the level of misuse and abuse that has gone on has perpetuated this idea that it's fake, or that people are just pretending, and you know, all of this sort of thing, and that we have been manipulated in that. And so, you know, our generation in particular did see some people truly manipulating that, and it was one of those things where kind of the baby got thrown out with the bathwater. Because it has been misused, we just dismiss it altogether and then stay in the things that we can control and explain.
Yeah.
You know, and so there's that. And then I think there's this other side that even those who have gotten past that into seeing, okay, it is scriptural, this does still continue on. I believe there is a level of fear, and the fear is that I'm going to be disappointed.
Yeah. Yeah.
that it's not going to look the way I thought, or maybe I'm going to ask and truly believe and it's not going to happen and I'm going to be disappointed. And then in that, how do I wrestle out what my relationship with God looks like if I am disappointed?
Yep.
And so there's a fear to even go there because then you're going to have to face that.
Yeah, yeah, and so isn't it safer? And I love what you're saying there, because that's really the essence of it. Is that it's safer if I say, "Well, God, I'm praying for healing," but I'm admitting and saying, "Maybe not, probably not. If it not, it wasn't your will." I'm not putting at risk my reputation at all, even your reputation, because I'm kind of giving it out. And we're supposed to pray for this. But I'm afraid to take that risk. And by the way, it only seems to reinforce it because, hey, I've been part of, and people can say this, I've been part of small groups where we prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed for God to heal.
And did not see that answer.
And we saw nothing. So it seems like, and again, why bother? And I certainly don't want to take the risk of claiming anything. And by the way, that's kind of a healthy way to look at it, because the key is God says, yeah, this isn't about you, it's about me, and it's about my will.
Right.
So we have to understand. So thanks for sharing that. So as we look at that, last time, we talked about, we had questions of him, and he says those are legitimate. Let me answer those. And then he says, I've got questions back to you, and we've talked about some of those, and let's continue those, and then we'll see where we go with that. So this is Mark 9, 19.
Sure. And he answered him and said, O faithless generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I bear with you? Bring him to me.
Yeah. So after all this time that I've been showing you this, how long do I got to keep showing you this that isn't real? Then at least bring him to me. Bring this to me and let me demonstrate this to you. Even with it's still incredulous, God speaking for me, to believe that you still are struggling after having experienced this more and more and more, that you're still struggling with this. But okay, let's go. Let's do it again. Come on. And so have a heart to keep going, basically. Why are you struggling and not willing to go? Okay, Mark 10:51.
Sure.
This is something we saw before, but he says it again.
Okay. Mark 10:51. So Jesus answered and said to him, what do you want me to do for you?
Yeah.
The blind man said to him, Rabboni, that I may receive my sight.
Yep. And again, it's a very specific question, is as you're pursuing this, be careful not to make it global, but rather, well, what exactly would you like me to do in your scenario, your life? And by the way, it doesn't have to be, I don't have to be sick, or I don't have to have a physical problem. I just have a financial problem. I got a conflict problem. I got a business problem. I got all kinds of stuff. And God says, well, what would you like me to do? Now, it's not tell me what to do. It's just what are you dealing with?
Yes. So as you talk about that, can you press in just a little bit and differentiate for people the difference between the intimate conversation that is taking place and actually talking through, dialoguing, what do you want me to do and what are you dealing with, versus the genie in the bottle, make a wish? Right.
Yeah. Well, it's think about a prayer life is generally a wish list. And we might even do this in our what we call our quiet time in the morning, or people even have lists where they pray for different things at different days. Is that, well, I'm praying for this, I'm praying for this, I'm praying for this, and I'm basically saying, God, here's my list of things I need you to do. Yeah, they're personal. My view of it is I'm going to give you this list. Probably a lot of this isn't going to happen, but I'm going to give you the whole list. Which ones happen, whatever happens, happens. And whatever didn't happen, I guess, is your will.
Right.
So yeah, I told you what I want you to do, but it was out of, I'm not really expecting much, And by the way, I'm just telling you this issue, and in essence, what I would like you to do to solve it.
Right.
And he says, well,
and no real dialogue taking
no
place
dialogue
there.
here. He's really saying, well, what exactly could you tell me is the issue that we're going to go process together with? It's always a question out of a heart to seek my will, God speaking. And let's talk about the issue. Let me give the truth on the table. And then we can walk into what I have to say about this, and particularly when I want to do some supernatural things. And so, but I need it to be specific, to you, as opposed to generic or just a wish list. So let's talk about what's going on with you and process that further instead of just being either too global or be a wish list. So I think that is a good way of doing it. Okay, let's go to Luke 8:25.
Luke 8:25
Yeah.
says, but he said to them, where is your faith? And they were afraid and marveled, saying one to another, who can this be? For he commands even the winds and the waters, and they obey him.
Yeah. So that as you're processing this, his question to us, well, what do you believe? Where's your faith? And do you understand faith? Really, which is certainty of what I have to say is true. Is that even on your radar?
Right.
That you understand what the essence of faith, and I'm the author and finisher of faith, and that therefore I have to speak something and then take it to belief so that you can say, well, I believe, basically in a very generic way, and just like I talked about at the very beginning of this whole topic is, well, God will take care of me, so there's nothing to do. He said, well, that's not faith. That's actually a false faith. It's, do you understand where in all of this do you understand about faith?
Right.
And I had to admit, when he asked me that question, I don't know.
Right.
I'm not sure even what you're asking me. He said, yeah, I know, because you don't have much, and you don't understand it. So I think, son, I'm going to have to teach you about faith as part of this process. Okay.
Right.
Okay. All right. Where's your faith? Okay. We'll skip the next one. That's the same one as who accessed my power, and go to John 5:6.
All right. John 5:6 says, when Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he had already been in that condition a long time, he said to him, do you want to be made well?
Yeah. This is a big one. Okay, you got a problem. Do you actually want it resolved? Do you want to be made well? And it's a really deep heart question, because the answer to a lot of people is not really.
Interesting. Now, why do you say that? Flesh that out a little bit for us.
Because actually I've identified now with this problem, and it actually gets me attention by being the victim or being suffering, or I can,
and
people,
sometimes the problem can become our identity almost.
that becomes my identity, and then people actually give me attention because they feel sorry for me. And do you really want to be healed of this? Like if you're addicted to something, do you really want to get through this addiction? A lot of people just basically say, not really. No, I really don't. Or do you really want this relationship restored? Nah, not really. I like it protected because we're at odds with each other, and I have control of this. And I actually like the control of it, because it's a very, very deep question that is at the heart of it, is what's your real heart about this? And are you kidding yourself, basically?
Right.
You say, I'd like to be healed, but God doesn't. I'd like this result, but God doesn't. But God doesn't. But God doesn't. Woe is me. Awful is me. And everybody comes around me and says, oh, poor you. And actually, your identity is wrapped up in this awful thing, because the truth is you really don't want to, which is why Jesus asked the questions. Well, do you actually really want to have resolution here? Okay, then go to John 9:35.
Says, Jesus heard that they had cast him out, and when he had found them, he said to him, do you believe in the Son of God?
Yeah. So as I do my work, is it carrying you to believe? Because he said, actually, you say you haven't seen much, but if I really could show you something where I have been working in your life or working around your life, I've been doing it anyway.
Right.
And do you really believe it? Are you willing to believe it? To see what I have been doing and to recognize this as supernatural? Or are you so skeptical that you reject even the things I am doing? Because you really have no belief at all that I'm able and going to do this for you. And then this last one, which is John 11:40, he makes this great statement and question, really. What does he say?
Jesus said to her, did I not say to you that if you would believe, you would see the glory of God?
Yeah. So he says, if I could wrap up all these questions, if you have a heart to go, do you understand that you're going to see the glory of God? And then underneath it all, it's this. Don't you want to see the glory of God? Really? If you do, you have to start recognizing the only way I can be glorified is the supernatural has to be operating for something beyond you, because if it's just you, I'm not glorified.
Right.
And by the way, I'm not demonstrated the power I've got, which is my heart for you, and by the way, the power to lead you to good things, and to demonstrate that, which is, by the way, why the world itself tends to reject Christ, because they don't see much difference and say, well, God is good, and then they look at our life or they look at the situation and say, it doesn't look like that way to me.
Right.
And you have more trouble, than I do. And then two is that you seem kind of harsh, and you seem judgmental. So not only do I not see God's glory, seems to me you're not doing that well either.
Right. Why would I want to look like you?
Yeah. And so he says, don't you want the glory of God? So that as we look at these, questions, and again, hopefully you've written them down, but let's go through them again. Is, why are you so fearful? So write that down. Why are you so fearful? Let me get to the next one here. It's why do you think it's never going to happen? Do you believe that I'm able to do this? Why do you doubt? What exactly do you want me to do for you? Isn't it normal that I would do this? Who has the courage to access my power? He says, I know you're seeking supernatural. Well, what do you got?
Right.
He says, why are you seeking a sign to prove it as opposed to just walking with me to learn it? And then he says, how long do I have to continue to show you when I am showing you and you don't receive it? He says, where is your faith? And do you understand faith? Do you really want to be made well?
Right.
Do you believe in what I've been doing because I have been doing it? Do you have any belief in any of that? And then, if you would believe, you will see this. You'll see the glory of God. Don't you want to see the glory of God? So, here's the question that I'd ask everybody to do, and I did this. When I went through all these questions, I kind of highlighted probably the ones that are the biggest ones for me personally. That really I have a hard time answering, in the affirmative. So when I went through this, before and started this, it was, for me, it was around, why do you tend to think it ain't going to happen? He says, why do you think this isn't normal? That was a big one for me. He says, how long do I have to keep teaching you and you still struggle with this? That was one, even when I was going through it. He said, where is your faith? That was one for me, and I had to understand, what does that mean? Where is my faith? Do you understand that, and do you seek really my glory, or are you really just trying to, live out your own life on your own power, and really what you're seeking is affirmation for you? And that was a big question, because I was geared toward accomplishment and having things done, and I could get things done. He said, but you're doing all that in the natural, and none of that is glorifying me. Do you really care about that? And I had to really address it.
That's a great soul-searching question right there.
So those would be the questions, and I'd urge you to think through it. It's not about all of them. All of them were not all as significant for me, but I did go through and understand what is God really asking me, and the way, as I was asking him questions and then he's asking them back, it really set the stage for me to learn it. Because I had to really focus on some things that he's saying, well, I know where you are.
Right.
And by the way,
and really what you're describing is he kind of put his thumb on some spots in your heart that he wanted to challenge you in,
right,
and grow you in, so that you could step into this, right?
That's right. And that, first of all, I don't want you to deny it. I'm trying to show you there is some issues in your heart that's preventing you from doing it.
Right.
I know you got some questions of me. So he said, why don't we just start here? And you kind of know where I understand you are and where your struggle, your real struggle is with it. Which is okay. And I need you to actually understand it.
Right.
Hey, I know you got questions of me. Let's start to walk through it. And I'm going to have to deal with these things in your heart that are roadblocks. And I'm going to answer the questions you have of me. And we're going to walk into the experience of the supernatural. And by the way, one thing as I was doing this is he said, do you understand that this is what abiding is all about?
Right.
It's me doing a work in you and through you and showing you who I am. And the only way you can do it is you're going to have to abide with me. And there's no rush to it.
Stay with me. Stay connected.
And don't demand, because, okay, I would like to know the supernatural. Well, just show it. And give it to me, And like he said, well, you're going to have to walk into me because, first of all, you got some issues of your own heart that have to be dealt with. I got to show you some things that is true, and it'll be step by step by step. He said, why don't you enjoy the walk?
Right.
And I'll get you there, and I was willing, because I'd already learned a lot about abiding. At that point, he said, you're ready for this, because if you weren't ready for it, we couldn't even go here because you would reject it anyway. And so that's why we're urging people to have a heart to consider it and to recognize there's no rush to it. It's a personal walk, so we're going to give you some truth about this, but really it's going to have to be a personal walk to move into these scriptures and to start processing them. Because the question's going to be, do you really believe it or not?
Right.
And the only way to believe it is hear what I have to say, receive what I have to say, understand what I have to say. I'll get you to believe it, and then, by the way, you'll experience it. And we can, again, say to everybody, if you have a heart to go, everybody, no limitation, will experience supernatural.
Love it.
How cool is that? And so we'll pick it up
cool.
Next time. We'll start to define, okay, well, what exactly is this? And we'll get into it. So it'll be fun.
Great. Looking forward to it. I love the topic that we're on right now, and I think this is going to speak to so many people. So if this has raised questions for you, send them in, questions@afjministry.com, and we will see you next time.
Yep, we'll see you then.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Come and See, your podcast for truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. Send us your questions and comments, and tune in tomorrow for more answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. Remember, God's will is best and none better. His truth brings peace in this world of chaos.